So this is a very typical Cleamix decontamination use case. We have been called to decontaminate a corporate meeting room. We start from dimensioning the location. We look at the fabrics, the materials used, what is the total volume in cubic meters, what is the expected duration of the treatment. As part of the dimensioning, we also pay very close attention to air conditioning system, any hatches, ventilation systems, or any other points where we could have hydrogen peroxide vapor either escaping from the space or causing harm to any neighboring rooms or surrounding areas. If we cannot stop the ventilation completely, which is always the desired action, we will in any case cover them with sheet plastic. And the same applies to any fire alarms that we detect in the building. Now, with that said, this is not necessary with all types of fire alarms, so that may depend from country to country. For the electric appliances in the room, such as projectors, we don't need to do anything. We can leave them safely in place because hydrogen peroxide vapor, when properly used, does not harm any electronics or sensitive equipment. Now that we have done dimensioning, we have all the equipment that we need for the process readily available at the door or the entrance. So in this case, we are going to use one VCS-100Cr master device together with an extension unit. Normally, for a meeting room of this size, we would only need one unit, but as customer had an urgent time schedule and we need to do this in a fastest possible manner, we have prepared two machines. We also have a catalytic converter for the safe removal of the vapor after treatment. We also have hydrogen peroxide liquid 50% as well as personal safety monitor. Now as we are ready to start, the person inside the room is wearing all protective equipment possible because we don't know whether there is contamination such as coronavirus in the room or not. So the person is wearing coveralls with hood, breathing protection as well as gloves. Now another person outside is handing over the equipment into the room. So this way we make sure that the contamination won't spread from the room to the other areas while we are preparing for the treatment. Now that we are inside the room, the operator will place the machines so that they ensure as complete mix of the air as possible. The oscillating fans will naturally circulate the air, but it's always a good idea to place the machines apart from each other so that we have, as in this case, two production points for the vapor, which are at the other end of the room. Cleamix devices are briefcases by form factor. It's essential that the machine is placed on a flat surface as this will ensure the proper operation of the machine. The inside cushion is removed as it would unnecessarily absorb hydrogen peroxide vapor during the treatment. So we will simply take it away and remove it from the room before we start. As a next step, we place the hydrogen peroxide bottle into its place. Please note that the cap should only be opened after the bottle is securely in its slot. Attach the top unit with the hoses carefully. Please make sure that the cap is properly fastened, but you don't need to screw it too tight. Then connect the hoses, the hydrogen peroxide feeding pipe, as well as the return pipe. Please make sure that they are firmly connected. The next step, we will connect the sensor suite. The sensor connects to its appropriate connector above the screen. The connector has red indicator spots showing the proper alignment. The sensor is located as far from the machine as possible because we want to have a reading which best corresponds to the overall concentration in the room, not the concentration in the immediate vicinity of the machine. It doesn't matter which position it is, as long as it's not immediately touching any surfaces. Please remember to remove the protective cap and take it out of the room for the duration of the treatment. Next step is connecting the power cable. Before connecting the power cord, make sure that the red power switch on the control panel is in off position. It goes into its slot at 45-degree angle and by turning clockwise, it attaches to its fixed position. We are using an extension unit today, and we are also using a catalytic converter. The master unit, which we are just preparing, is giving the control commands through Ethernet cable. So as the next step, we connect the Ethernet cable to the available LAN port. You may choose whichever is available. This time, we are placing the catalytic converter approximately halfway between the machines, so it's in the center of the room. Catalytic converter is using similar power cord as the actual VCS vapor generators. So you attach the cable and twist it a little bit clockwise, and it fits firmly into its place. Catalytic converter removes the hydrogen peroxide vapor after the treatment time, so it's normally placed in the center of gravity, if we can say so. So this time, we will connect the Ethernet cable coming from the master device to an available Ethernet slot at the catalytic converter. We also make sure that at this time, the catalytic converter red main switch is pressed to on position. It will only start by the command of the master device. Now we have one more machine going to be connected to the system, the extension unit. So now we are extending the network from the catalytic converter onwards. So now the next RJ cable is being connected to the catalytic converter, and then from there it will reach the extension unit. Now this is the extension unit, and you can see the difference. It doesn't have a touchscreen. This is simply another production point, doubling our capacity of hydrogen peroxide vapor output. Technically, we can add 50 of these units into one master unit, so the total volume that we can treat with the VCS system is technically unlimited, because we can then add just simply one more master unit and further extension units. Now the setup procedure of the extension unit is same as with the master unit. We remove the padding, we attach the bottle and cables. This time we also have an extra sensor to give better situational awareness. In a small room like this, it's not really necessary. However, in larger or more complex spaces, this is really good idea. Now we want to have the sensor at a different altitude compared to the master device. So we are using innovative methods of finding a good place for putting the sensor. Now we have the other sensor at approximately 1.8 meters altitude and the other sensor at 50 centimeters of altitude. So this gives operator an excellent awareness of what is the actual ppm level, the concentration of hydrogen peroxide in this room during the treatment. Please note that extension unit has 4 Ethernet slots, so you may connect to any available slot and you can extend the network from this unit by using any available free slot. So from one extension unit, you can take connections to 3 other devices, which can be other extension units or catalytic converters or, for example, power-controlled fans. We have now all the cables connected. Now it's time to once more check that we have all the connectors correctly. We have an Ethernet cable going from master device to another device, which is in this case catalytic converter, and from there to the extension unit. For effective decontamination process, it's essential that we spread the hydrogen peroxide vapor as efficiently in the room as possible. Normal freestanding oscillating fans are excellent for this purpose. Now, if you only have 1 or 2, try to place them so that they push the fresh vapor away from the machines. If you have multiple fans, it's always a good idea to, of course, first place in a way that they mix the vapor from the immediate vicinity of the machines, but also pointing to the most remote and hard to access places in the room. For example, undersides of the tables, behind the bulky pieces of furniture, and so forth. Before we start, we are moving the furniture in a way that we let the air circulate better. So for example, in this case, we have cushioned chairs close to the table, so we will pull them outwards so that we have better air circulation under the table. If we have cabinets or other closed pieces of furniture, we will open the cabinet doors, we will pull out the drawers, because we want the air and hydrogen peroxide vapor to circulate everywhere. Now this is a good time to place the chemical indicator tapes as well as biological indicators into the area. With the chemical indicator tapes, we can see in real time how the process is proceeding. When the tape changes color from blue to pink, we have achieved a 6-log kill, which is sufficient for any possible contaminant or microbial organism that might be present in the room. Time to power on the machines. We start from the master device. Master device has the main router handing out the IP addresses for the other devices. Catalytic converter will blink, and once the light turns green, it has obtained an IP address from the master device. It's time to start the control application. However, before we do that, we make sure that this tablet computer or whichever device we are using for control is connected to the Wi-Fi of the master device. The network ID as well as the password is printed on the sticker on the front panel. Now everything is set for starting the process. So first we log into the control system. We can either use the username and password provided, or we can just use the default user rights by just pressing go. After logging in, we normally start with self-check of the device. We can skip this, of course, by just pressing the arrow symbol on the right-hand side, but it's better to let the machine to run a proper self-check. The self-check is running through the essential processes. It's testing the fan, pump, sensor, and the heating unit, showing the percentages of the each stage completed. Now, while this is in operation, you can go to the settings. You don't need to wait the test to complete. Please note that sensor test is not same as sensor calibration. When we are using the device now from a cold start, the sensor calibration can take up to 6 minutes. We will see on the setting page and the control panel how the sensor will look when it's completely calibrated. Now we are starting the first cycle of the day with freshly started machine, so we have to enter how much hydrogen peroxide we have in the bottle. The standard bottle with the Cleamix machine has a volume of 1 liter, which is 1000 milliliter. Now this case, we have half of that, so we enter the proper value of 500 milliliters. We also enter here the target size, which means the size in cubic meters of the room that we are treating. We also set the target ppm level, so what is the concentration that we desire for this process. The system will calculate us the theoretical ppm value, the theoretical maximum concentration possible, but please note that this theoretical value may not be immediately available if we don't yet have the sensor calibration completed, which may still take few minutes to complete. Please note also that the target size can be approximate. You don't need to be exact. Let's say that if the room is approximately 40 cubic meters, that's enough. You don't need to define 34 or 44. You just make the rough estimation. That is enough for this purpose. Now we have the initial values set. We have the amount of hydrogen peroxide in the bottles. And please note that this is now presuming that the extension unit has the same amount. Extension unit amount can be more, but it should never be less than what is in the master unit. Target size is set. We haven't yet set the target concentration level. We will do that later. But now we see what is the highest possible theoretical value under current temperature and humidity level at start. Moving forward, we come to the program settings page. Here we have the values that we have entered previously, if we have any. Now we don't have the target ppm set yet, so we start now from entering treatment time. We enter the target level. We validate that the RS limit is what we want it to be. The default value is 80. And we also set which is the concentration level in ppm that we want the treatment time to start. So for example, if we set that to 0, it means that the treatment time starts immediately when we start the cycle. If we put there, for example, 20, it means that the treatment time will actually start ticking when we have exceeded 20 ppm in the target room. We can also here enter any additional information and notes for this particular cycle or this particular room. For example, we can make side notes about different ambient conditions and factors influencing this particular treatment. We also give here a report file name because after the treatment we can save all the data, and it's always a good idea to give a unique file name for each cycle that we run. On the left and right hand sides, we see all the other menu options. On the left hand side, we have the different main views: the dashboard, the program loading and saving, setting the current program, the environmental page, the trends page, which means the graphical output, the report generation. On the right hand side, we have the functions for circulation, which means that we are running pump to fill the pipes with hydrogen peroxide. There may be water filling from the previous treatment, as it's always a good idea to flush the system before putting the machine into storage. We can also set the supply level, which means that if we notice that we have entered actually a wrong value, how much we have hydrogen peroxide liquid in the bottle, we can fix it there. We can save the current program, and we can also check the settings for catalytic converter or converters if we have multiple of those. And we also have the menu for internal other settings. Each field is entered separately, so hours and minutes have their own pop-up dialogues. Same applies to all other fields. You enter the value, you press enter, and then you choose the next box. You can go back by pressing escape. Now we have the basic parameters set. We have set the treatment time to 1 hour and 30 minutes. Our target concentration is 200 ppm, which is sufficient for most viruses and molds. However, it wouldn't be sufficient for decontamination of a hospital operation room. However, this is enough for decontamination of typical office space. The RS limit is 80, which means that the machine doesn't allow combined saturation to exceed 80%. This is very important because this is our protection against surface condensation. The treatment time will start when we exceed 100 ppm. So it means that the 1 hour and 30 minutes will start counting only after the level of 100 ppm has first been achieved. This is also a good time to enter the proper file name for this process. So once we have saved it, we will find later on the results for this particular cycle. Now everything is set. Treatment time, target level, RS limit, start of the treatment, additional information and notes, and the file name for the report. Now it's time to go about the other settings. So let's next validate what are our settings for the catalytic converter. Catalytic converter settings lets us choose between automatic control and the manual override. The manual override means that after the hydrogen peroxide vapor treatment is done, operator is manually activating the catalytic converter. We can also put it to automatic setting, in which case the system will automatically start the catalytic converter. Now we can set the range when it operates. So for example, our current target was 200. So we can, for example, tell the system to activate the catalytic converter between the values of 190 ppm and 1 ppm. Why? Because 1 ppm is the level for safe use of the premises after the treatment. Now it doesn't matter in which order we put the maximum and minimum value. Sometime operator may choose the starting point a little bit lower than the initial target on the actual gas generation cycle. That is because the operator may prefer that the residual concentration can still do its work before the actual removal of the vapor starts. Now we have set all the program parameters, so we can go and save these settings so that next time when we do same treatment in same room or in similar room, we can load this same program without the need of re-entering each value. Now we are ready to proceed. Next thing we do is that we fill the system. We press the circulate option, which means that the system will start pumping hydrogen peroxide and filling the system because the pipes may be either empty or they may be filled with water after previous treatment. It's typically a good idea to flush the system before putting it into storage or transporting it, and that is done by replacing the hydrogen peroxide bottle with water bottle and activating the circulate function. Now, circulating at this point will give us a faster start because the pumping rate of the machine in normal operation is only 3 milliliters per minute. It would otherwise take a lot of time to fill all the pipes and get sufficient quantity of hydrogen peroxide into the evaporator cell. So we press now circulate and the system will automatically fill everything and we are ready to go. We can see how the bubbles move in the pipes. Now with this said, it's perfectly normal to see bubbles in the pipes. Hydrogen peroxide is dissolving spontaneously, so you will and may see bubbles forming, and while the system is in operation, individual bubbles may be flowing. The main menu quick program will let us to either load a new program or save an existing program. So we previously saved this program with the name Kokoustila meeting room, and now we are just illustrating how we would load it. Now, all the values that we just entered are still in the settings and dashboard. This is simply to show you how to load a quick program if you have one in place. So now it's time for operator to go through all the settings once more before starting the cycle. So operator can go to check the supply part once more. Everything seems to be in order. All the values are as we entered. Now the main menu environment shows the ambient conditions. So this is actually numerical values of the graphical information in the dashboard. So here it's easy to check what is the RH, RS, temperature, and the absolute concentration of water in the air right now. It's also showing how much liquid we have and what is the time left and total runtime. At this point, as we haven't yet started the program, ppm of course is 0, RH and RS are same value. They are always same at the start because there is not yet any hydrogen peroxide in the air. Once we commence the operation, the RS value will climb rapidly while the RH value will climb slightly. Temperature is important because the effectiveness of this treatment is also depending on the ambient temperature. It's generally recommended that temperature should be above 20 degrees for the best output. On the right-hand side, on the menu bar, we can see the tab Extensions. That is where we will have the information about any extension units connected. It will also show the status of catalytic converters connected. Here we see the system as a whole. So it will tell us now that we have the master device and we have one extension unit. Both are in stop state, which means that they are still waiting for the start command. We will see the sensor readings of both. Now, if we would have an extension unit without the sensor, it would only show the ID and the state because there wouldn't be any telemetry available. When we are in operation, the operator can here check what are the readings from the extension unit sensors if they are present. This screen can show you status of up to 4 extension units. It will also show the ID of the catalytic converters connected. We have at this point 1 and it's showing its status. What we can read from this screen is that our extension unit is in proper standby mode and the sensor readings are correct. We can see that the two sensors have slight variation in RH, RS and temperature, but this is within allowed tolerance. And in any normal room, it's completely possible that we have temperature difference between low elevation and high elevation. If we want for any reason, we can rename the ID for the external units. Same applies for the catalytic converters. If we have multiple units, we may want to give them unique IDs. In some software versions, this is automatic, so it may well be that it is automatically showing you all the catalytic converters with different IDs. From this screen, we can exit either back to the previous screen where we had the ambient conditions and environment, or we can choose any of the symbols on the left-hand side. The Trends main tab shows the graphical output. So we will have there two graphical displays, and commonly the upper one is used to show the ppm level. The lower one is best used to show the graphical output for the RS and RH. In latter case, it also makes sense to update the values of the y-axis so that we have 0 to 100, which is best fit for reflecting the percentage value as RH and RS are represented in percentage. The Legend tab will let you to choose from different values that are displayed. The Y max and minimum let you to choose the scale. You will also have the time bracket selection you can choose from different settings, plus you can go back to the history once in operation. Now, these legend settings can be set for both screens separately or both grabs separately. However, the time and history is same for both. We can also choose when we stop logging, whether we stop when the value goes to 0 or something else. This is completely user set function. On the Reports tab, we see existing reports we have there. So we can start a new one, or we can delete some or all of the old ones. We have also various functions for the report handling, printing, sending by USB, or generating the final report. We can also delete the log and delete the reports. These functions are all explained in detail in the user's manual. Now we go to the dashboard. Now this is our main information center while we are in operation. So the 6 different graphical displays show us the concentration in ppm. The value in the middle shows the current level in numbers. The decimal figure below shows what is the rate of change per minute. So if we have displayed 100 ppm and the below number says 10.1, it means that the concentration is increasing at the rate of 10.1 ppm per minute. Same applies to the RS and RH values. You have the numeric value and you have the rate of change. We will see here the liquid consumption. So right now, it's telling us that we have 500 milliliters left and 0 used as we haven't yet started. Also, the time shows now 1 hour and 30 minutes as we have not yet started the program, and this timer will start ticking backwards only after we exceed the set limit, which we did set for 100 ppm. Temperature information is useful for just evaluating the efficiency on targets. And you can see again that RS and RH are same as they should be at start. And once we set the program to start, the RS value will start climbing faster than RH, as the RS is the combination of hydrogen peroxide and water in the atmosphere. Please note that we also have the indicator for active Wi-Fi and catalytic converter being the present at the lower part of the screen. At this point, the right-hand menu bar shows us the start, pause, stop, extension, self-check, and logout buttons. So start naturally means starting the cycle. Pause is stopping or pausing the process without resetting the clock or any of the counters. So if you for some reason want to pause the vapor production without terminating the actual cycle, you simply press pause and then press start again. Stop is actually stopping the program and stopping the clock. Extensions gets you back to the display where you can also see the same telemetry data from the extension units. Now, please pay attention to the fact that this dashboard is showing you the master device telemetry. If you want to have telemetry from extension units, so sensor-equipped extension units will show their telemetry values by clicking the extension tabs. At the upper part, you also see the information that there is one extension unit and one catalytic converter connected, and it's also showing us the program name we have. So, all good to go, we press start. And from now on, the operation is fully automatic. We will be once more prompted when we will stop the logging of the data, whether we have the catalytic converter selected and a ppm operational range given. Before we start, we can, of course, choose to remove any existing logging data from the memory. And also, why to set the ppm limit for the data end is that if the machine is simply left on, it will collect telemetry even after the ppm level has returned to 0. So it's a good idea to put there a stop. And 1 ppm is a good point to stop the log because by international health regulations, 1 ppm is the limit for permanent exposure to human beings. So now the cycle has started, the program has started. So you can see that the lower part of the screen has now the status information heating, which means that the heat element is now setting the right temperature, and the pumping and vapor generation will start once the heating element has reached its target temperature. At this point, we can still have a look around in the area. There is no danger yet. The machine will start beeping when it's time to leave. This is a good time to start the oscillating fans and make sure that they function properly. The fans are always started last because we don't want to spread any contamination from the surfaces during the time we do the preparations. So we switch them on just before we leave the room. The portable personal monitor is your tool to detect if there are any leaks through the door. This is done during the process frequently. If you detect leaks, you need to think about how to seal it better or make sure that no people are in the affected areas. Normally, the door is sealed with duct tape. In this case, the door is extremely well insulated and very tight, so as we detect no leak, there was no need to put the duct tape around it. However, in most cases, it's a good idea. Once the treatment is complete, we can return the room to its original condition. We remove the covers from ventilation ducts, fire alarms, and wherever we have applied it. When packing the machines after the use, it doesn't really matter in which order we do. We can switch them off whichever way we please. Of course, it's a good idea to save the data we just collected, and that is done in the control interface. So each treatment generates a report that can be studied later on and refined for analytic purposes. Please remember to put the protective cap on top of the sensor when you remove it. Forgetting the cap will not just expose it to physical damage, it will also shorten the duration that you need to do the calibration of the sensor. Please be careful when you disconnect the hoses and the hydrogen peroxide bottle. Droplets may come out when you do it, so use of gloves is a good idea. Remove the hose assembly and pipes while the bottle is still resting in its slot in the machine. Put the cap in place. And now please note that this set has hydrogen peroxide liquid on the metal pipe. So at this point, it's a good idea to have a wet wipe, which you can use to remove any residuals from the set. Treatment being complete, we put the cushion back in its place. Now we can close the briefcase and transport it to the storage or next location.